So I'm going to invite Tomer Sofinzon up to the stage. But if I say to you that this is the one I chose, because I think what they're doing is going to be so profound, please pay attention, and I hope we've got time for questions, so save them up towards the end. Tomer, no pressure. You've had a big build-up. Please welcome Tomer Sofinzon to the stage. Oh, a whoop as well. Come on, how often do you get whooped and whistled as you get onto the stage? Don't answer all the time. Tomer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, firstly, just a quick background. Please introduce yourself, your background. Where did you study? But you know, and you know, I know that you became an investor. Tell us what sort of things you're investing in later. But
Right.
so, really, 1 minute, go.
So Tel Aviv born, French raised, American educated, and now I live between London and Geneva. Here, that's a one.
On a plane.
On a plane. 13 times entrepreneur, 2 quite pretty nice exits. One in cybersecurity before the age of 30, and one pretty recently in big data. And an angel, both an angel and VC, 50 investments.
50?
50.
What kind of companies have you been investing in?
So all of them, not all of them tech. Some of them, and some of the big success that I had were actually in biotech, thanks to my father, who is a pretty important biotech investor in between Israel and Switzerland. But I had 5 pretty important exits, 3 M&A, and 2 IPOs.
Okay.
And I raised quite a bit of money also for all the companies that I was involved in. And yeah, and now basically, as we say in the industry, went down the rabbit hole.
So let's move straight to the rabbit hole. Actually, I would like to ask you, as this is the future of finance, what is tokenization?
Okay, so this is a very important concept. The concept of tokenization is, I want everyone to understand here that we have digitized our lives for the last 20 or 30 years, okay? Our films are now digitized, our music is digitized, our ID, you know, is digitized. Pretty much everything is digitized. And now we're going to add the notion of tokenization on that. What is the notion of tokenization? Enables those digitized elements to be transferable, exchangeable, and basically tradable, so to provide liquidity on that. And in order to do that, many of these things that are already digitized around us, the ability to bring that tokenization part, so adding that on the layer of blockchain, will just make things better, faster, cheaper. So every 30 years, we're basically at a crossroad of technology, where you have a technology that is actually making a leap forward. So it's not only going from an internet of exchange of information, but just with more user interaction, but it's actually going to a different type of internet. Okay, so this has happened, you know, in the last 30 years, and now we're basically transferring from an internet of information to an internet of exchange of value and transaction. That's what will change that.
So, to summarize it, then if it's the act of converting an asset into a token stored on a blockchain, how big is that market? I mean that's a massive oversimplification. But how big actually is that market? I mean, I've heard, I've sat at dinners with very knowledgeable people saying, nah, it's not going to be important. It's just like one of those things. And then there's other reports from esteemed organizations who say like huge percentages of the world's economy will be tokenized.
Absolutely. I mean,
where are you on this?
We are definitely on that spectrum. And again, whether it is a company such as 2030 or companies such as Revolut, for example, that are going to be able to leverage that, it's one question. The other question is that someone is going to do it, okay? And someone is going to have that effect. The world is going to be on the blockchain, and the world is going to be tokenized because we're just talking about gigantic markets.
What kind of things will be tokenized?
Let's take something very concrete here. This building, a real estate, right? We imagine, for example, a future where you're going from, I don't know, this side of Liverpool Street to the other side of Liverpool Street, and you have...
You mean walking?
Walking.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And basically you have little QR codes next to each building, and people can actually, identify...
Zap to buy a piece of the building.
Exactly, and they can buy 1 square meter of that building, and basically build themselves a portfolio of 50 buildings, different assets of building within, 100 meters walk.
That's just mind-boggling.
It is, but this is the way. This is, and make no mistake, this is going to happen. In 5 to 10 years, this is going to happen.
So that applies to. I mean, I've heard people talk about art. Especially, I would love to own a piece of just a tiny piece of some amazing art. I mean, it would
Wouldn't be nice to own a Picasso, no?
Just a little chunk of it. Real estate, I understand, but it's also interesting how other more intangible assets could be tokenized. People from the gaming industry have told me that all those gaming assets now can be more fungible and traded.
Oh, absolutely. So basically, one of the most important things to understand is that 90 to 95% of the world's assets are currently illiquid. Okay, so we're talking about there is a very, very visible line here between the public market and the private market. And the private market is 90 to 95% assets. We're talking about real estate. We talked about art. We talked about gaming. Right. All of these things will now become tradable, and we're going to see this this very clear line here. Between the public and the private market kind of, become fuzzier and fuzzier as we are getting more and more liquidity from, let's say, the startup or the real estate or the art or the games, etc., up to the public market.
Now, I think we better hurry up because I've been keeping an eye on the clock, and I think they're making it up. Look, the clock is not a negotiation, right? We've got our 20 minutes, and we're going to stick to it here. That went down to 5, and now it's back up to 9:22. So we better get on with it. So, what was the inspiration about 2030? The name. And what's the strategy for 2030?
So the realization that, again, as we're having here a technology leap forward that is really going to change humanity, horizontally, and will make just things, better, faster, and cheaper. The products that will be in 2030, so in 10 to 15 years, we're going to have different kind of products to attack those markets, to basically be able to be visible on those markets. And that's what we call the company 2030. We wanted to create the services that are going to be mainstream in a world that is going to be completely different. So that's really the...
But it's an umbrella for quite a few projects.
It's an umbrella for quite a few projects, increasingly growing. In the last 2 months, we have tripled almost the size of our portfolio.
How?
By starting and acquiring companies. So
Can you give some examples?
Sure. The notion of 2030 is to have this holding company based on very successful models such as in the creative agencies industry, WPP or Publicis or even Google and Amazon in the first 10 to 15 years when they started. They were really a collection of startups more than anything else. So really the idea was to create a holding company owning 100% of those companies in order to create a synergy and alignment between everyone. So 2030 is a collective of companies where it's a collection of entrepreneurs, each one with his or her own startup. Some of them we start internally, some of them we acquire. And then we're all together, every one of us have a piece of the holding company, so we can have a better alignment between us. And
so you're acquiring companies then?
So we are acquiring companies. We've acquired quite a few. A lot of them are very interested to work with us because of the operational efficiencies that we have, which doesn't exist so much in a VC. In a VC, every time you have to recreate the infrastructure from scratch because there is no synergy necessarily or not intense synergy between the companies. So really what we're trying to do is create operational efficiencies and a lot of intense synergies and help
all related to the token economy and blockchain.
All related to blockchain. Blockchain and DLT is the common denominator of everything. And right now we have quite a concentration in fintech, but we'll also start to have quite a concentration in the infrastructure services. So services that developers, you mentioned gaming earlier, that developers will need those services in order to leverage the blockchain economy.
So 6 minutes and 35 seconds left. Tell us about the FCA regulatory sandbox. Why did you enter? What happened in it?
So for those who don't know, the FCA Sandbox is, as its name suggests, it's a little sandbox where you can actually play with your... No, but it's true. And I'm saying it in a very, very positive way. They're giving you such a small thing, you know, where you can operate your technology and you can test things.
Without hurting yourself
without hurting,
or others.
Or others, exactly. Without hurting, and it's not so much hurting yourself, it's much more hurting the other financial system that is very, there's...
If you like the grown-ups, the FCA.
Exactly.
Watch.
So they're providing you a lot of guidance. They're providing you a lot of help. They're meeting with you regularly. They're learning as well from that. That's what I love about the FCA. That they're, it's an extremely serious organization. It's an extremely serious protector of the financial system, and at the same time extremely open for innovation, and are really looking forward on how to push the boundaries in order to, but what we're trying to do here, we're trying to liberate capital, right? We're trying to liberate innovation.
So nice to hear someone saying they love a regulator. I don't hear that often. It's very, very cool. I'll mention it next time I see it. So, and then we saw the London Stock Exchange Group announcement.
Yep.
And I was actually blown away by that. Do you want to just tell us a bit about that? What did you test? You ran a test, right?
We ran a test.
What was it?
We ran a test of
Was that with the FCA? While you
within the FCA, so within this FCA sandbox,
Yeah.
we ran a test on what we call tokenizing our own equity. We took our own equity and we said, no shares, tokens. So you're going to have tokens, and those tokens will represent your equity in 2030. So before, as one of our subsidiary, before Token Factory, our subsidiary company, one of our portfolio companies, is going to offer it to client, we're going to test it as guinea pigs on ourselves.
Drink your own Kool-Aid.
Right.
Yeah,
We're gonna drink our medicine.
So what happened?
And as you can see, I'm not green, and I'm still here, so it actually worked.
Well, actually, you're not in prison. That's always a bonus in this business.
And the idea is really to test the ability to the whole process for onboarding investors, as well as collect the investments and tokenize the equity, enabling investors to receive equity tokens representing equity in 2030, and ran that on the Turquoise platform of the London Stock Exchange. To prove what? To prove that this is actually that these systems, first of all, understand that they can read those things called tokens, that we're not only imagining things of coming and say, okay, it doesn't, no, but there is actually connection, and that the system actually understand each other, with the view of actually coming to say in the next step, those tokens can be traded.
So the important thing there is that it was issued with Turquoise sending a settlement notice to your blockchain, right?
Correct.
But that's Turquoise. I mean, that's massive. That's the London Stock Exchange's liquidity platform, right? That's really huge.
It's absolutely
game-changing.
It's absolutely huge, and this is absolutely one of the things that and that's why I'm saying with so much conviction, guys, this is happening, right? It's happening, and it's here.
Yep.
The future is already here.
In London.
In London.
Woo! I like that. Say that louder. In London. Yes, exactly. Well, it's really good to hear, because we hear so much about other jurisdictions doing great, pioneering work. But what do you think about it? I mean, you could go anywhere in the world, right?
We could go anywhere in the world. As you can hear, I'm not from here.
No. Louis Max.
But we chose to be here because we have a deep belief that if you want to advance, if you want to push the boundaries of the financial system, you have to do it from the financial center of the world, and it's here in London. It's not changing anytime soon.
Well, I must admit that having seen that announcement, I know that the buy side is getting interested. Okay, so is this one of those tipping points that brings the institutional investors looking at these kind of assets?
100%. I mean, if you want to bring the institutional investors that are all around here to do this and show them how much it is actually an opportunity for them and not a threat. It's actually an amazing capability for them to trade better, have more liquidity, and actually do more business and increase revenues and profits. You have to do that with brands such as the London Stock Exchange. You have to be able to do that in a regulated environment within the FCA Sandbox, and now we're getting out of the sandbox as well. So this is really changing and pushing the boundaries.
In the view of 1 minute and 31 seconds left, I got 2 questions. Audience, raise your hand if you want to ask me this. If you want me to ask him this question, what are the challenges in achieving this goal? Or, I know you've got a lot of attention from investors. How big can your business get? Which one? Raise your hands for what are the challenges, and how big can your business get? God, that's equal. Okay, I'm going to go for the first one because what are the challenges? This is not, just connecting with Turquoise is not an easy thing anyway.
No.
So how big can this, no, sorry. You know what I really want to know.
Yeah.
What are the challenges?
The challenges is really to do that in a way that all financial institutions are playing well together and are really working in a coordinated manner. And it's not an easy thing because they have their own responsibility. They have their own things that they have to take care about. You know, people think that there are a lot of other MTFs, right? So kind of exchanges. They're not.
It's a misunderstanding. It's not the same thing.
You have the London Stock Exchange that is really the true, genuine, only MTF, at least here in the UK, but also in Europe. And when you're getting into the secondary trading and the settlement, the SDR, the CDR, as we're saying, you know, it's even less. So you have good concentration on that. So you have to play with those things. You have to show responsibility. You have to make sure that you have all the right pieces in place from a compliance perspective, from the internal processes, the systems and control, all of that in order to really do that.
So, okay, how big can your business get?
We believe that we have a business that is just attacking so many gigantic markets, whether it is capital markets, whether it is asset management, whether it is proof of identity. So we're talking about gigantic possibilities over there. And people are going to start hearing about 2030 and what we're doing in 2030 more and more as we're ramping up, and we're really going to be a lot in the news in the coming months. So make sure you subscribe to our newsletter and you keep informed. Because we do get a lot of attention from investors and pretty much from everyone, because we're really at the cutting edge of everything that is being done.
What do you need next? what do you need? What's the one thing that this audience can do? Do you need talent?
Talent and money.
Talent and money, okay.
As usual.
That's great. Okay, finally, your view on Libra. Rising tide floats all boats, or more centralization?
Fantastic for blockchain if it goes through with regulation, because it increases adoption across everything. But this is definitely not the way to go in a centralized manner where you have each node. So each node on the consensus mechanism, you need to buy it for $10 million or something like that. So this is not the scalable, decentralized, open blockchain that we want, and zero word on anything that has to do with privacy, which, in my opinion, is actually the much more terrible thing than actually the Libra things.
Wow, interesting. Thank you. Come to the stage. I know the owner of this conference, and I'm just wondering if we can allow one question, or do you want us off?
Not only can we allow one question. Everyone come to the great debate at lunchtime on the Libra coin, so we'll talk some more about that. So
excellent.
Let's have a question.
Thank you. Please, if you have a question, this is your moment to ask. This is one of the people leading the industry. At the back there, I don't know if you've got a roving mic, but shout your question out, I'll repeat it. Use your diaphragm. Yeah. Hello.
I'd like to ask a question. What's your view on the current UK regulation when it comes to representing shares in companies using blockchain? Because we all know that there are registers, there are central security deposits, which in the UK and in the EU are a major obstacle to actually freeing up shares in private companies. Thank you.
That's a great question. One of the verticals that interests us definitely the most is what you describe is the startup or the SME market, that we want to bring liquidity and liberate into that. Our view was actually pretty simplistic on that, and it's just, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Okay, so it's a security, it's a security, it's a security. What does it mean? It means that you have to create regulatory and legal framework to actually understand and create. And the most important thing here is to create the tie between the token itself and the underlying asset. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to stand in court of law if there is a liquidation or if there is a dispute or something like that and say, hey, this is my token, right? This is my equity in the company because I own those tokens. Today, if you're doing that in the wrong way, and many are, and many times I just see it and I just say, okay, I don't think they really understand what they're actually doing, because if you don't have this connection between the token and the underlying assets, then you don't really have anything at hand. So I don't believe that we need a new regulation, to maybe your question. I think that there is a very fertile ground here to build this kind of solution, and this is what we have done. Create a very clear regulatory and legal framework without changing the law.
Wow. One more? Yeah, go on.
Last one.
Yeah, lovely. Go, quickly, say your name.
Hello, I'm Dr. Chen Xuan. Just wondering, we have infrastructures assets on the bottoms, and then above that, for example, hotels, you have lots of consuming on top of that. So what is the relation between the application consuming inside tokens with the associated with the assets who want to invest? Are these kind of relations defined by the industry themselves, the assets owners, or by kind of a trade, kind of a policies, or by legal teams?
It's this is a commercial question, so meaning that we're going to see a lot of innovation from service providers. Token Factory is going to be one of them, on providing solutions to issuers on how they want to tokenize. So I'll give you two examples. You can sell the assets, turn the assets into equity, or do a hybrid between equity and bond, right, on the asset itself. And you can also create a token that is a revenue sharing using, using, for example, if you're lending it, if you're renting the apartments, or if you're using that for hotels, etc. There are, hundreds of different ways that you can actually do it. And that leaves a lot of flexibility while still being a security. So that's...
I think we better go before we get thrown off. Jane, thank you for your very kindness. Big hand for Tombert Sofinzon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being so kind to us.